full board meeting for May 22nd, 2023. We will start with a roll call, please.
Thank you. I'll proceed with roll call. Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeidi,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first item under general business is public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody who is here from the public to speak to anything that is under the purview of our board, but that is not specifically related to an item that it's on today's agenda. So if there's anybody who is in the general public that would like to speak to anything of that nature, you're welcome to do so at this time.
All right. Thank you, Chair Kalas. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. So just as a reminder, if anyone wishes to speak, you can fill out a speaker slip by the back door. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, and I don't see anyone moving to speak, so I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and I can call on you. At this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we did not receive any general written correspondence. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Kalas.
Thank you. The next item under general business is the approval of the minutes from the Single Family Design Board meetings of May 8th. So there's two sets of meeting minutes from that day. The first one is, this appears to be the full board meeting, so we'll take a look at that. And I'll ask the members of the board if they have any comments for staff. I have a couple. Is there anything that anybody saw that needed to be stricken or cleaned up on these minutes? Okay, so I have a couple small items. On page 2 of the meeting minutes, item 1D, under item B, Barker Pass Road, just noting a grammatical error. It says non-invasive trees is not proposed. I think that should be R, A-R-E.
Sorry, Chair Kalas, can you repeat where you're at? Just
I'm on the wrong agenda. I'm on the wrong meeting minutes. That's not going to help much. Let's go back to May 8th. Thank you for asking the question. Okay, so item 4, or page 4, under item 3, Braemar Ranch Lane. Under the motion, item 1, the third sentence, I believe it should read 1 through the one-story living room and including the northerly property line. That's correct. And then the next sentence should be the second through the westerly two-story volume instead of the westerly mass two-story volume. So we want to delete mass and replace the word second with the word two, T-W-O. I have a general question in regards to item 4, but I think it's more of a general business item. And then item page 6 of 8, under item 4, the motion, bullet point D. Again, that's a grammatical error. Trees is plural, so it should be A-R-E, not is. And item 5, page 7, under board comments, I believe it would be more accurate for item 2 to be stated as follows. The board, insert, believes it can support the size, bulk, and scale, but requests a square footage study, yada, yada, until we get to the 3 each side of the subject site and the 2 parcels directly across the street in order to justify this position.
Thank
Those
you.
are my comments. Are there any other comments? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Did you want to see them again? We did capture the edits so we can bring them back, but up to you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the edits noted.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Under discussion, just really quickly, do I have to abstain because I had a project on the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that you'll still be able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeidi,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent minutes from May 8th. These are May 15th that are up on the screen if we go to consent minutes for May 8th.
So we've approved the May 8th meeting
Consent
minutes
minutes.
for consent, but we have May 15th for consent as well as May 22nd.
Okay, so, look at the May 15th consent then. I think they'll just bring those up. God, I'm all. May 8th.
We have the May 15th SFDB consent meeting minutes up on the screen for review and approval.
Did anybody have any comments on these items? I have a couple items. Page 2, item B, project design approval comments, 1D. Again, the same grammatical error. I think we're going to keep having that grammatical error because that may be the verbiage in the NPO findings, so we may want to revisit that. Page 4, item D, 939 Carrillo Road. Under the motion, item 1, I just wanted to clarify, will have translucent glass as opposed to the clear glass currently illustrated in the drawings. I believe there's a numbering issue with the motion because it goes 1, 2, 3, and then skips to 5, if we could renumber that. Again, the same grammatical error under D in the NPO findings. And the word confronted in item E should be replaced with addressed. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. It's clear that drainage issues are being addressed and that the applicants have retained the appropriate consultants. And under item 6A, last sentence, if we could just note that page 49H is from the Single Family Design Review Board guidelines, please. No other comments? So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the comments made.
Second.
If we could have roll call, please.
All right, Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeidi,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis,
Yes.
and Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then consent calendar meeting minutes from today, May 22nd, and Ms. Gerfeidi was present for those, so we'll ask that you take a look at those.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second that, if we could take a roll call, please.
Right. Chair Kalas,
Yes?
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeidi,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis,
Yes.
and Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the next item under general business is announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Are there any recusals from the board for today's agenda items? No? Okay. Is there anything from staff?
Chair Kalas, board members, just a quick reminder announcement. We will be providing a general training on Tuesday, June 20th. It's at our regularly scheduled hearing, our full board hearing that day. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. And then I had two quick items. One was related to Ms. Gerfeidi's recusal on full board 2 weeks ago. I just want to clarify there's no change to the meeting minutes. But the recusal was based on a potential conflict of interest, but what was read into the record was it was a typical statement that's made by professionals that are producing drawings. This is a unique situation because it was Ms. Gerfeidi's project, so there was a conflict of interest in that she's the owner. She was presenting drawings, but she was not the preparer of those drawings. So I would appreciate if we could get staff guidance in regards to what the appropriate reading into the record conflict statement would be for Ms. Gerfeidi going forward, both for her own project, if it comes back to the board, as well as any other projects where she might be involved as a designer. So there are two different circumstances, and I just want us to be clear on which are the appropriate statements to be reading into the record for potential conflicts of interest related to each circumstance.
Chair Kalas, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I will speak with the design review supervisor about this, and we'll get back to you.
Perfect, great. And then the other thing that I wanted to do today before we started, will only take a couple minutes. So one of the things that we have to do on our board is we have to read into the record oftentimes what's called the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance findings. This is it's a number of findings that basically says, we can agree that this project's going to be good for the city. It's kind of generally speaking. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. It's good for the health, safety, and welfare of the beings that dwell within our city. It's compatible with size, bulk, and scale. One of the items that I wanted to read into the record is found on page 5D of our guidelines. And I think it's interesting because of the choice of words, which is why I want to read it into the record and just kind of remind all of us on the board of this higher standard that this holds projects to. It's not just stating that projects need to be consistent and okay. It's asking for the projects to enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. So specifically, this is item 1 under the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance findings, and under the general required findings, item 1, which is consistency and appearance. It states that the proposed development will be consistent with the scenic character of the city and that it will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. So I guess this is kind of a call to arms for everybody out there who's going to be bringing a project to us. Bring us projects that are going to enhance the neighborhood that you're proposing it for and not just kind of be mediocre. We're looking for great projects. We're looking for great neighborhoods. And that is what this is placing our charge as. So that's what we're looking for. And I just want to remind everybody that we live in a beautiful city and we want to see beautiful projects. It's the end of my diatribe for today, and if we want to move on to item E, unless there's any other announcements, we're at a place where we can do that.
Yes, no further announcements from staff?
Okay, and no subcommittee reports.
None, thank you.
Okay. So with that, we will move on to the agenda for today. We will start with item 1, which is 1240 West Mitchell Terrena Street. We will ask whomever is going to present the project to step forward at this time.
Just go through it? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
Make sure that this is lit up when you're going to speak clearly into the mic.
Okay.
So just protocols in terms of how our meetings go. In case you're unfamiliar, we will read into the record the description of the project. And then I believe in this case, staff has some information to share with us before you make your presentation. And then you will make your presentation. You have 15 minutes to do that. And then there will be an opportunity provided for the public, any interested parties to make comments. And at that time, the project will be turned over to the board for questions, to ask you questions to respond to. And then we will have a deliberation period that is just our time to deliberate and unimpeded. And then we will make our motions. Okay? So if you could introduce yourself, please. Yes.
Hi, I'm Eddie Osich. I'm the architect for the project.
Great, thank you. So this project is located at 1240 West Mitchell Terrena Street. The project is a proposal to construct a 2,681 square foot, 3-story, single-unit residence, including 537 square feet of attached 2-car garage on a vacant lot located in the Hillside Design District. The project includes decks at the 2nd and 3rd stories and a roof deck. The building is proposed to be recessed into the hillside with 992 cubic yards of cut, such that its floor area is reduced by 50% in the calculation of maximum allowed floor area. The proposed total of 1,341 square feet of floor area on a 6,098 square foot lot is 50% of the maximum required floor-to-lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer approval is required for zoning modifications to allow construction within the front setback and to construct overheight fences and walls within 10 feet of the front lot line. No final appealable decision may take place at this hearing. It's here for concept review, neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district and slope lot findings, and grading findings will be required if and when the project is reviewed for project design approval. So I'll ask Mr. Bellman to share with us whatever he might.
Yeah, thank you, Chair
Have
Clark.
for us.
Afternoon, board members. I'm Tony Bauman. I'm the planner assigned to this. It has a case planner because it requests zoning modifications. The project's still in application completeness review. I've been working with a team, the land development team, and reviewing this. It's been a really interesting project to work on because it's such an unusual site. Very steep slope. It's a small lot, just roughly 6,000 something square feet, but about 77% average slope, starting right up from the street. I got in response to the notice we sent out from this hearing, I got correspondence from a neighbor about like, what about construction and blockage of the street during construction and that kind of thing. So it's been interesting to work on. Two of my colleagues in Public Works went out to the site yesterday to check it out, but I haven't seen them yet. So the application is not complete, but I've worked with Mr. Osich on the plans that you're looking at today to make sure they had all the information that you could use to do an informed concept review. We think your feedback's important at this time. The site is interesting because it's in a zone, it's RS6 zone, which is the single-family zone of the city that has typically the smallest lot sizes. Yet it's also in the Hillside Design District, and it's very steep. Behind the project is RS1A zone, so we've got the biggest typical average lot sizes abutting the smallest zoning, so it's a mix up there. The lot's not very deep. That's why they're proposing to build a house right at the front lot line with no setback. And the apparent, like, we'll look at some photos of the site, but from the edge of the street to the front lot line is probably about 10 feet back. And if you look at a picture of the vacant site, the front lot line, that's about 7 or 8 or more feet above the street where the front lot line starts. So all that's going to be dug out so that the garage will be at more or less street level. So it's been a very interesting project. And I went through the design guidelines looking for applicable guidelines to apply to this situation, but they don't really fit. The illustrations in your single-family residence design guidelines, probably the most critical one, given the way it's a 3-story house, is apparent height. But the illustrations in here talk about how a building can step back along the hillside, but this lot is not deep enough to do that. So I think in this case, the apparent height is just the height. It's about 28 foot something actual building height proposed. The height limit's 30 feet. There's a retaining wall, a retaining grade above the top of the house that adds to the apparent height. So that looks like that's probably about 40 feet, maybe from street level. You can see that when you look at the front elevation drawing. So about the best I could come up with and regarding design guidelines is the fact that it's a tough site. That's why it's vacant. We don't have very many vacant lots in Santa Barbara anymore, and if there are vacant lots, there's a reason, because they're tough to build on. But it is a legal lot, and the owner has a right to develop it with a house. So I thought it'd be good for the SFDB to think about what this is here for. And in the SFDB guidelines, the purpose of the SFDB, it says, according to the City of Santa Barbara General Plan, Santa Barbara has as its primary goal the provision of a particularly desirable living environment. Single-family homes have long contributed to the character of many neighborhoods in the city. The SFDB is charged with the responsibility to ensure homes are completed with high-quality designs that are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, preserve the city's visual resources, promote long-term sustainability, and contribute to a desirable living environment. So I think that would be the job in front of the SFDB. The owner has a right to build a house here, so if the SFDB can help ensure an appropriate design, that would be what we want to accomplish. And a little bit of background, in 2016, there was an approved project here, and the building permit was issued in 2019, and the owners recently worked with the Building and Safety Division and building inspectors to call for an inspection, so that building permit is still alive, so the owner could build the previous approved project. There's not been much action there on it, but building and safety inspectors were willing to go out, do an inspection for erosion control to keep the permit active. And
So-
that kind of gets back to our application review and environmental review. That previous project had pretty considerable environmental review for biological resources like the oak woodland area and geotechnical and biological resources. But because this proposal is very similar, it's just a little bit of a bigger building footprint proposed now, that we're we're asking for just updates to all the previous studies that were done. There's nothing significant that's changed in regulations or with site conditions or anything. So we're going to be requesting updates, and then we should be able to just pick up where or amend or add to the previous environmental reviews. So we don't expect that to be too much of a concern, but that's not been completed as of now.
Okay, so just to clarify, there's an existing approved active permit for residents for this parcel. And we have in front of us a new proposal for a different residence. Is that right?
Pretty similar, but staff thought it was enough of a different design that we wanted to do a new application and new approvals.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bauman before?
I just had a question around, it says proposal to construct a 2,681 square foot, residence essentially with garage. Then it says the proposed total is 1,341 square feet of floor area. Can you help me understand the difference? I know there's a garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a nuance there in that arithmetic. It's because when we're calculating the maximum required floor area, it has built into it that 50% reduction in measured or floor area that goes into that calculation. In other words, this house is really dug back into that steep hillside so that like the rear area of each of the 3 floors is underground basically, or enough underground so that that floor area that's back in the hillside can be reduced.
Okay, similar to if there was the basement. Okay.
So
thank
it
you.
is livable floor area, but it's specifically excluded by the way the FAR is calculated. So that's how it comes out to 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so there's a 50% credit effectively towards the net square footage when the FAR calculation occurs.
Yeah, they call it a reduction.
Right, okay.
Well, right, because when you look at the FAR, a 6,000 square foot lot, 85% is 2295 square feet. And so I would think this one would be about 80%, but the FAR is confusing to us with the, whatever it's stating here, 50%. So, I mean, that's a guideline for us, but understanding how that got calculated is super helpful. So I'm not going to try to figure out the 1341, but assume that that's all accurate.
Well, it's just 50% of the floor
Total.
area.
Okay.
In the plans, Mr. Oshutz could point out, we've got indication on the plans to verify that it does qualify for that 50% reduction, and that's shown for each floor level. And I can walk you through how it's calculated if you need to.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Bauman before we let him go? Okay. So I imagine he'll stay here in case there's any questions that come up. We will turn the floor over to you. Please present your project. Let's see what you got.
Hello, everybody. I just turned myself off. I left myself on the whole time. Good thing I was quiet. Hi, I'm Eddie Osich. I'm the architect for this project. And it started off a lot of the way Mr. Baldwin stated. We had an initial project that was, it was significantly smaller. If you're looking at it now, the right, not significantly, it was approximately 700 square feet smaller. So it was really non-functional. So we added the small wing to the left that you see on the front cover, where that window, and you see the deck coming out below. So that's really the new part that's different from the original base plan. The client had come to me and he had shown me the original plans, which were insufficient as far as living standards, I guess. That's a good way to put it. So that's why we went ahead and added some square feet. We also reconfigured some items. The living space has been moved to the top floor. I mean, the living, what do I say, living area, excuse me. The master suite is also on the top. And you'll see as we go through the drawings, how we've tried to keep pushing back into the mountain as much as we can and trying to match the hillsides. When you see the side elevations, you'll see you'll get a lot about that 50% that you're talking, that everyone's concerned about. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to go to, how do I go? I just jumped to the next one. This is a review of some of the materials. We're going with a simple siding, some of the exposed retaining concrete walls. We have the wood flooring up on the upper decks and the glass rail. And we're trying to get as big of openings as we can to face out, because that's really our only elevation. That's why you see so many windows on that front side. You see this big piece up here, even this window, these two on the bottom. Everything is trying to face Mitchell Terrena. Okay, and then so you can see how the site is very aggressively going up. You can see our green zone is all to the left. And we're pushing the whole lot as far as we can over to the right, so it's as far away from our adjacent neighbor as possible as well. And also, you can see how it turns just slightly for those additional square feet. And you can also see how the garage is set in right up against the street. And if we kept digging, we'd have to keep going further in. So that's why we're asking for that special allotment. You can see in this one how we're removing some of the trees in the center of the lot that are in the area that we're doing construction. So here you can see of course it's really small. Can I zoom in on this thing?
You can go up to the top.
Oh, there it is. Oh, wait, the top.
Go
Oh, here it is.
to the right of the hand, yeah.
So you can see on our first floor, as soon as it becomes occupiable space, we're set back. The garage is a part that's pushed all the way to the front. So we cut out this area, and as it goes, can I move to the right? Let's do the little hand. I do know how to use a computer, just not yours. And then here's the second floor. You can see how it's lined up here. And then on the third floor, we start stepping back again. So you can see the progression as it goes. And then let me zoom out. Or go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. Large down arrow. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This is the area of visibility on the corners here. And you can see where we have the garages set in. We had to push all the stairs all the way to the back. There's a small elevator at the very, very back corner. We're stepping this right side back with planters. We actually have added a planter here. It doesn't show up in the renderings right now, but we've added another planter because this wall is pretty severe and we want to cover that up. We don't want that exposed. So, and then here's the deck that's coming out, so that there's some exterior space that's usable on this lot. Without the exterior decks, there's nowhere to go outside. You would eventually, when you get up to the roof deck, that's the only place to go. And like I said, you'll see it from the side angles. We come into the two main bedrooms here, restrooms, the whole normal bit. And let's go to the next floor. Here, this is where we're starting to push back further from the street. That's why we have this little, I guess we'd call it a pinch, where we can actually enjoy the deck again without having to push over the street. So that's why we attacked this level. These walls are continuing pretty much all the way down, and you'll see a cross-section coming up. And then the roof deck. The roof deck is finally, you can breathe and get out of the dirt, so to speak. This area over here, we have it just as it's going to be more planters and those kind of items. It's not going to be a usable deck like this part is. You can see over here, it's the same kind of thing going on. And this is for our impervious area calculations, by the way. So you can see we've actually limited the footprint and kind of kept stacking it and moving it back. This reflected ceiling plan, that's not as important. More reflected. These are the things that show. This section is basically the same as my elevation on the side. You can see we have very limited windows. Actually, this is the window from that little bend that you see in the distance. But you can see we're going up, and we have to cut back because the hillside is so severe. And this is cutting across in the other direction. So here's the front elevation that everyone's been seeing. Everyone probably thinks that this is a giant box that's sitting out there, but actually, if you see it from the right side, this is all you get. This is the east building elevation. We don't even have a window on this elevation. On the west side, we have one window. This is literally the side elevation. If you're coming down the street, until you start to turn, this is what you're going to see. So a lot of, and I love somebody in my staff said, you got to put in the south elevation. But that's basically, but these were used actually to figure out the calculations, the offset of 4 feet, and that's also contributes to that 50% reduction. And then we go into normal details. This gives you an idea of how aggressive the site is. We're really pushed into this. So we would be coming up here, going back, going up, and going back one more time. And here's a aerial view. So you won't see it until you're coming upon, you might start seeing it about here. And then you'll see it, yes, definitely. But we're also even, since our side profile is so hidden from view, our neighbor over behind us that's also in construction, they also won't see it. You see the house on this side has also done somewhat of a similar aggressive plan, but they're not quite as dug in as we are. Here's the overall overhead view. We're in the, so you won't even see us from until you're down here. And we're still away from the brow or the top of the hill. We're still set below it pretty significantly. Do we have any other pictures showing? Here's kind of, it's more of a drone shot looking up. Some of the site has been scraped, so, you know, to prepare for eventual move-in. So, you can see it there. And actually, our site is gonna, I think we're gonna be a little bit shy of this, to be honest. This is like right the limit. And then the straight-on shot. I know we have a lot of these. It's just, the site really drives this project more so than anything. So, and here's an upper view of how so you can see how we are stepping back at every opportunity. So the only thing that's coming totally to the street is the actual garage. The front door is set back 5 feet. This elevation is all at that 5 foot, and then we keep pushing back. Like I was saying, we're missing this precious planter here. So, and that's pretty much it. Was there anything else, Tony? Nope. Here's another shot. This is a little bit more prior. This is a little bit more Photoshop pushed around and not a true 3D yet. Okay.
Okay. You have, for the record, you have 3 minutes and 8 seconds left. If you'd like to retain that for rebuttals to public comments or questions that we might have, you're welcome to do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, great. So at this time, we will close the applicant's presentation and we'll open up the floor to public comments that are related to this project. So I'll have staff go ahead and manage that process, please.
All right, thank you, Chair Kalas. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. So at this time, I do have 4 requests to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Alan Kossenhagen. If you could make your way up to the podium. You can introduce yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Alan K. Sagan. I live at 1222 West Mitchell-Torrena Street. It's approximately 4 houses down from the proposed project. I think everybody agrees this is a problematic lot to build on. It has been in hearings for the past 12 or 15 years prior to this approach. Couple things. You read earlier on about your decisions wanting to focus in on, does a project enhance the neighborhood? That to me is a critical element because quite frankly, and no, not to the architect, this looks like putting a cement wedge into the hillside compared to the other houses. And they're all of mixed origin and construction. So there's no uniformity there. I can see this lot from my living room window, so I disagree with the comments about how far up around the street. That's a 1-lane road going around the street. So when you go around now, you've got a hillside. If you put a house of this massing there, it's going to be like driving through an alleyway as a comparison of the change. We also in the neighborhood have concerns about during the construction, how long it'll last, the amount of equipment that has to go in. The foundation approach is completely different from the prior one where they tried to drill caissons into a sand hill. You know, if you go to the beach and dig a hole in the sand, what happens? It fills up by itself. So I guess I appreciate the idea of trying something new. Doesn't mean that I'm in favor of it, but at least it's getting there. I've lived there long enough in the neighborhood to become accustomed to the view I've had before. This is a massive change. It became a massive change when the hillside was stripped, the oak trees taken out, and the prior companies tried to drill caissons and were unsuccessful. So in your consideration of this project and the review, I focus back on enhancement. Does it meet the criteria that you read into your proceedings at the beginning? And I think that deserves some careful attention. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Up next, we have Paul Hartleft. If you could make your way up to the podium. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. Is it on? It is, okay. Thank you. I'm Paul Hartloff. My wife and I, Mary Hobson, live 2 houses down from 1240 West Mitchell-Torrena. We're at 1230 West Mitchell-Torrena. So my concerns are primarily like structural and things like that, and also the impact it has on the neighborhood. Getting a better view of how it looks right now, pulling into that driveway, and any potential issues that might happen as far as runoff and things like that could be and people pulling into the driveway and things like that. It's kind of a challenge, and if somebody gets stuck, the people further on up the street can't get through, which will affect us down the street, things like that. So also in terms of the actual construction and removing the material and things like that, I'm not sure about how that's going to be done, how it will impact the present road as far as compromising the road itself and any things that might happen as far as trying to remediate that, and if the city had to remediate that sort of thing. So that's basically it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have James Fisher, if you would like to make your way up to the podium.
James Fisher, 1244 West Mitchell Terrain. There are 3 houses at the end of Mitchell Terrain Street that are connected to West Mitchell Terrain Street by a single lane road. And that single lane road is where they would be building. It seems that our access to the street is going to be severely compromised. Also, some of the earlier permits, they promised to reinstall some of the many trees that they took out. I guess that promise has gone away. And I don't know if it's relevant to this, but the owner started his own project. I own the land up above, and he's virtually undercut that land. I'm kind of afraid that a big rain is going to bring it all down. Of course, if it's built, that won't be a problem. I think he's going to have a horrible time selling this property, and I think we might be going through another rainy season with my land ready to fall down the cliff.
Okay, at this time, that's all the speaker slips that I have. And seeing no one else move to speak, I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. So if you wish to speak on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. At this time, there are no hands raised on Zoom, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So with that,
One hand here.
okay.
If you'd like to make public comment, can you please approach the podium and we can get a speaker slip from you after?
I'm the other half of Jim Fisher at 1244 West Mitchell Terreno, and we have the beautiful view at the top of our hill where our land, you can see all the way down to the city. And this is going to be just like right in front of our view. There's not going to be, we're going to live in a tunnel kind of up at the top. So I'm concerned about that because it's a very restful, delightful space now, and it's going to turn into a concrete jungle. And I can't understand whether they're going to put the bulldozers and all the massive equipment that's going to need to build a house and not impede the street traffic. I mean, I want to be able to get down my street. And I can't see bulldozers digging the land and stopping and let me go on down the street. So I'm concerned about the building equipment. And I'm really concerned about my view at the top of the hill. I don't want to see a concrete jungle in front of me.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Glass.
Thank you. I'm not trying to be rude with my phone. I'm doing a calculation here that relates to this project. I'm not taking care of personal business, just for everybody's edification, and I think that'll become more apparent as the conversation goes on. So at this time, we'll open the item up to questions from the board. I'm going to start with Ms. Lewis because she's always so strong out of the gates.
Well, first, to address neighbor concerns, I was wondering if the architect, if you can explain constructability and what's been discussed. I do agree, you know, they have a right to build, but within the means, I know that the street narrows down right at the property. So what's been discussed for that?
So I'm gonna take this one for just a second, and then you're welcome to step in if you'd like. So I'm hearing, and I'll narrow this conversation a little bit. There's a lot of conversations going on lately and in the background in terms of what this board's purview is as it relates to logistics and construction staging. It may be that down the line, we have more authority over that. At this time, we do not. Our purview is narrow. It's related to aesthetics, massing, size, bulk, scale, neighborhood compatibility. It's clear that there are concerns here on all of your parts in regards to access and how the neighborhood would be impacted during construction. We cannot speak to that. It's more of a public works related, applicant related, general contractor related item. So while we might be able to encourage the applicant to provide the neighbors with, for example, a staging plan or a logistical plan as to how access would be maintained and controlled during construction, we cannot speak to that. So I don't mean to preempt
No, I
the
think that's-
question. I just want to keep us on track. So if you want to proceed with any other questions you have.
I understand you discussed a little bit about the views and maintaining visibility because you really only have that one elevation to bring in light. Was there any review of built-in landscaping? I see on the rendering you've got planters. Sorry, I'm looking at it on my set, but it's the your first page, the rendering, and you've got planters out on the balcony. But is there an option or consideration for any sort of built-in landscaping to break up the mass of the building on the front?
That would be great.
Okay, that's fine.
We would not push back on that for sure.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, like you said, we have some on the right. We've also, the rendering didn't make it in time. We added some on the left, but it would definitely help. Okay. We can add more.
Okay, so I'm assuming then, I guess, second part of the question, that the rest of the landscaping is open and under development, especially the wing sidewalls. I know you talked about some landscaping. Is there anything that would prohibit any landscaping going into your retaining walls on the right side as well? Like taller, covering up the walls a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can add more. We don't want it to stand that proud. We just, we were just showing, what is being constructed. So, yeah, we can definitely introduce even more landscaping efforts to, shield some of these walls. That'd be fine.
I think those are my questions for now.
Okay. Ms. Sherry, do you have any questions?
I do. I have a few. Have you thought about any Tier 3 BMPs that you're going to have to incorporate to infiltrate or treat the water before it goes into the stormwater system? Because this is a tricky site. Just wondering if you've thought about it yet.
Yeah, it's, well, that's part of, you're saying like a lid plan. Is that what you mean? Like a...
Just like how you're going to treat, where you're going to store the water,
Yeah.
how you're going to release it.
Yeah, that's part of why we started having the terracing of the planters on the right, to at least slow it down coming off the roof, because I realize that it's a significant amount. And, I mean, that's the first stage of that. We definitely need to add more.
Okay. Can you go to the site section through the site that shows the 30-foot height limit again? I just wanted to to look at that.
Is this the one you were looking at?
I thought there was another section that shows
Oh, there's one more.
the slope and the 30-foot kind of ceiling. Yeah.
I think it's this, are you talking about the right and left here? In the front?
And let's see what's going on. And that whole, right there, go back down again, that whole upper level, the very top of that that's just a retaining wall, and those aren't windows. That's just, what is that?
Oh, the very top?
No, you've got the garage level, and then the bedroom level, and then the deck level, and then the roof, the railing, and then what's above that?
Oh, that reads so weird. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, what is that?
That's the top of our stairs. It's just a box back there. This really renders bad.
It's a box.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at the top of the stairs. It's a light well that goes all the way into the bottom.
It may help to go to the aerial rendering on page
Yeah,
30.
that would help.
Okay. 32?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pushback.
Oh, it's a light well, okay.
Yeah. And that's where you would come up for the stairs.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Anderson?
Oh, yes. So setbacks. They're setback and neighborhood compatibility and massing. So first, the setback. I understand the original was less square footage. You said that you added approximately 700 square feet because it wasn't functional. But I'm trying to wrap my head around a garage right on the front property line and maybe a 5-foot setback. I mean, first and foremost, too, I want to compliment you on your set of documents. They're very clear, and it's an amazing project and a outstanding feat. And lovely how you're stepping it back. I'm just trying to understand further and get more of a comfort level with the modification of the front setback. So did you consider a 7-foot, a 10-foot setback? And if you can compare the adjacent 1236, I mean, for us, if we have street silhouettes of, it's such a comparable structure that's already been built, if you could tell me that, well, that garage is at 10 feet and the height of that is 35 feet, and we understand and can see that already constructed, then that helps us with the whole acceptance, neighborhood compatibility. So going back to setbacks there, if you could explain a little bit more your request to
keep-
setback at, 0 and 5 feet, and the setback is really 20 feet?
Yes. Actually, the garage we kind of took from the original. The garage part hasn't changed. So we've actually gotten more aggressive with the rest of the house. So we actually have been pushing back further than what was originally proposed. But to go further in at that floor for the garage it'd be a significant amount of dirt. I mean, it totally affects the whole back wall of the whole thing. And that's why we pushed it as far forward. So I guess it was a physics and a budget limitations. So, yeah. was nowhere else to go.
Right, additional yards of cut, right? So you're basically on the front property line, and then you go 5 foot to the second, third.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So back to that 1236, the adjacent neighbor, and it's like a 3/4-story, dark gray, similar architectural style building. Do you know for us to compare what the overall heights and setbacks are of that? Did you?
No, but you can see that the grading from some of the pictures. Let me see. This one, it's right on the edge. You can see that the grading is significantly less. I mean, this is probably 2/3 of our slope, not the full amount. Let me see if we got another shot. They have the opportunity to step back. We're going right up against this wall, pretty much.
Okay,
I
one of
don't
the
know where
things.
else we could set it. I don't know where else we could place the parking, to be honest. You got me thinking in my head now, did we try everything? And I think this is the most efficient place to put it.
Okay, thank you. What about the neighbors across the street? All of your, I understand, the hillside step back and the front glazing, but all of your front views and the bedrooms in particular are looking out over the lots right across the street. Have you talked to the neighbors about any concerns about visibility into their backyard and/or across the street?
No, but you can see even the neighbor has the same condition. They have all glass. Second and third floors. They even have more glazing in proportion.
Okay, so the trees, can you tell us a little bit more about,
We were supposed to bring back some of the trees. Yeah.
okay. all right.
That was a decision the client had made about ripping those trees out. And the original application was to replace, and they've gotten too aggressive. I believe it says on one of ours, for our green zones, that we have to replace some more of the trees. So, got through that one.
Okay, yeah.
1 out of 4 ain't bad.
So I'm trying to put in relation to our apparent height section here, 54H. And I know you have that one section where you give us the apparent height. I'm just trying to, but there's no natural or proposed finished floor, finished grade for us.
I think
So
it was
I'm trying to
30.
understand if you could go to that elevation again, and if you know what your finished floor heights are, or if they're on there and I'm missing it. Could you help me understand?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, we have them, I'm just making sure they're not zeros. Yep, they're in there. Let me go down one more page. And let's zoom in. So you can see 189, 201. And 180 and 171.
If you scroll down to the elevation below, you have the heights measured between them on the left side. There you go.
Yeah.
Right, so at street level, it's going to appear like a 28-foot height.
Yes.
Okay, and the 9-foot, yes, and the step back. Okay, thank you. Let's see. I'm not going to ask about the retaining. Did you, I guess I'm going to let go of that one. For compatibility with the neighbors, did you study what the, existing square footages are of the neighborhood? I know there are a lot of smaller, there are a few 2-stories, but that helps us to, not have these dramatic changes to our neighborhood. And I'm, what's the right word? Definitely a proponent of maximum density. I mean, I understand, I get it, but for us to not have these dramatic, stark changes in the neighborhood, little softer landing for the maximum density is what we would prefer. So I guess I'm asking, did you look at the 10 or the 20 closest homes in regards to square footage and heights of those in consideration of your proposal?
We looked at some of the surrounding area, and what's listed, it was actually higher than the initial project. So, but with the 50% reduction, we're actually below the neighborhood. It's just that front elevation, there's nothing we can do about it. And we had to go wider, otherwise we had to go deeper. So it's kind of where it was at. So, yes, we looked at the area, and yes, if you take the overall calculations, we're right in the ballpark.
All right, thank you. And then, we also look at blending into the surroundings. Did you consider any other color, natural palette for your?
We need way better renderings on that. We had come in with initially with a gray, and it came across pretty bleak. So we're still considering changes in palette. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Ms. Graffitti?
Okay, looking at the cover shot, the 3rd-story deck isn't visible. Can you clarify if that's being accurately depicted, or if it's stepped back so much that it wouldn't be visible from the way that you're rendering it from the street?
Oh, it's.
If you go back, I think it's just the first photo on
So it's down here?
I think just might
Just
even
past
be
this,
page 1. It's just the
That's page
cover
one?
shot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you wouldn't see it from below. It is in there. It is in the model. We build everything true, sometimes to our own detriment, but we build it as true as it is.
Okay.
And, yeah, you wouldn't see it from this angle. We are pretty close to street level. So, you can see, because even the line of the second floor is still
Yep.
above. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's why you wouldn't see it.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. And then, in terms of tree removal, is there any idea? I mean, I'm not sure if you already have like a full plan. I don't know how many trees it was oaks, but
Yeah, we lost, we don't have a full detailed out plan of it, but we have to replace. So I think we've already lost 3 or 4. So,
okay.
yeah. It is it's somewhere in the set. It's back.
Where the recommended placement of those,
There's a whole green zone to the right, and that's. where
that's
they
the
all go.
green zone is depicting where the new oaks would be planted?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
A lot of questions, I think most were answered, so I think that's it for me.
You have comments, but I have a couple questions, I don't have many. I want to keep us on track here. Most of them have been asked. So some trees have been removed, but you would be proposing to replace some. I'm assuming we would get an arborist report at some point and a landscape plan. You're proposing glass railings. We try to avoid those if at all possible due to possible glare. Would there be an opportunity to look at a different railing type?
Yeah, definitely. My first thing would be to say rail. Not
Like a
rail,
cable rail?
Cable rail, yeah.
Yes, that would be,
That would actually, yes, great
Okay.
suggestion, yes,
Okay.
totally.
I was also going to ask for, as to whether you had looked at adjacent residences for comparable, or a comparative study of square footage, but that question has been answered. I was going to ask plate heights, but that was answered. It looks like they're mostly 9 feet until you get to maybe the third floor, and then it bumps up to, it looks like you're 9, 9, and maybe 12.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, so I apologize, but I'm just trying to, so relative to the very top elevation of the parcel itself, the natural grade, and I'm trying to understand the delta between your roof deck height, the highest point on the existing parcel. I'm trying to understand if there's an opportunity to do like a one-to-one slope down to the stair pop-up in order to reduce the height of that, where maybe you just have more of a popped-up light well or a lower wall rather than, that looks like a pretty tall wall that backs that stairwell.
We can
Because
definitely
really,
look
when
into
we're looking at this in front elevation, even though maybe it doesn't read that way from the street, at some point, when you step back away far enough, this is going to read like a 4-story home. So I'm trying to understand, how do we, is there an opportunity to reduce that wall that's behind the staircase, which is why I'm asking what those elevations are.
We can definitely do that. I think that there's opportunities there. I think we were going, let me get to that section. Oh, it was actually the elevation. Yeah, basically we want to get rid of this.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
think any
there's-
massing that you can, I think any way that you can bring this thing down is going to benefit you in the neighborhood, so.
Yeah. So I think we can cut it all the way, and we can bring it down here. I think the reason we had it at this highest point was, it was to make sure that we were at least, being able to diverge any water. But I'll talk to my team, and you can see it kind of goes along the edge here, and this is actually the profile over down here. So, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I have,
See if there were any questions.
lower the back wall, that's basically what I have here.
That was the question, yeah. And then I heard, and I'm trying to understand, I don't know exactly where Mr. and Mrs. Fisher live who spoke. There was,
They're at 1244.
so is that the one that is, if I were driving up Mitchell Traina, that's the home past this on the right? Is that where that is?
I believe so, yeah. It
Is
could-
is
they
that
would-
correct?
No, sorry, that is,
We have a lot and then kind of an L-shaped extension.
Okay,
It probably wouldn't affect the view from our house that much.
okay. Right, because you're looking up at what is the crown of this lot now, and that's all green right now before it's scarified. Okay. I'm going to ask you a tough question, because it's a tough question that's in front of this board, and it would be helpful for us to know what your position is on this. So in our single-family design review guidelines on page 6D, there are hillside findings. These are findings that we would have to make to approve your project because it's on a slope 15% or greater. And there are 2 items. 1, we need to find that there is appropriate grading and natural topography protection. The development, including proposed structures and grading, is appropriate to the site. It is designed to avoid visible scarring and will not significantly modify the natural topography of the site or the natural appearance of any ridgeline or hillside. It's the second part of that statement that concerns me. So I'm asking you how it is that you feel that you meet that guideline.
Well, okay, number one is, we did stay below the ridge line on this.
Okay.
So that we're not pushing all the way back. That's the first thing, first item. And I think the profiles, yes, I mean, this one does come up some. The profiles, we're trying to follow somewhat of the hillside, especially, this one's not as good of an example. You can see on the right here, we are barely coming out this whole time. This dimension here is, I'm 8 feet above grade at this point.
Okay.
My side grades, in the back, I'm actually, you can't even see the back until this back wall, which I would follow a suggestion, of course, of bringing that down. You can see the grade line in gray coming across. And how we're not dramatically pushing beyond that without pushing even further into the mountainside.
Okay.
And that would actually start to create a bigger problem going backwards. I mean, going further in would create more of an issue going up.
Okay. It's not a
kind of a
criticism,
rock and a hard-
it's a question,
No,
it's a
I'm done thinking
it's a
about it.
Jerry Maguire moment. It's kind of like, help me to help you, to help me to help you.
Okay.
Okay, and then I think you've answered number 2 in your last statement, which is the development, including proposed structures and grading, will maintain a scale and form that blends with the hillside area by minimizing the visual appearance of the structure and the overall height of the structures. Do you feel like you've done that with your profile?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, those are my only questions. So we're going to close the question period, and we are going to go to comments. So we'll go in the same order as we took questions, please.
Okay, I've got some notes. So the first one, I do applaud you for this site. I think it's a very challenging to work with, and I think that there's a lot of great bones to work with, and I think with some simple modifications, I think it can really help to reduce the scale, because the main rendering that you kind of look at right now, it does give an appearance of a larger mass, but I think the actual livable space that you see has the ability to help reduce that, especially finding ways to camouflage the retaining walls and add more landscaping and consider the material of that. Let's see. I think coming back with some understanding of what's happening with the water and water retention. I'd recommend adding planters at the balconies, introducing some landscape into that facade to help reduce the overall bulk that you see and make it kind of appear more like the landscape and the buildings kind of in the landscape. I think that could help with the bulk. And I'm actually not too worried about the setback, but I think a good study looking at your neighbor that is most similar in the hillside, both in their overall height and then also from the street to the garage, comparing those two dimensions, I think are helpful. Let's see. For your west elevation, I think it would be helpful to see it cut through, the one that you're on, actually, the bottom one. Cutting through where we see the retaining walls and see how that landscape steps, I think would be helpful for us to look at. And let's see. I think I mentioned the other ones. Okay, I think that's here for now.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. I think Ms. Sherry was next.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board member of the challenges of this site, and I commend you for taking on the challenge. And I agree that there are ways to reduce the retaining wall heights to eliminate some of the exacerbated, I think, extra height of those walls, especially on the back of the very highest one, but also on the sides. If you go to, can you just go and I'll point something out on the front drawing, the very first rendering. And it appears that even that sidewall could be feathered in to the grade could be feathered into that retaining wall rather than creating a high
wedge.
extra wall there. It seems like in that area, the landscaping could blend in and then turn into the structure itself, and that kind of harkens to the other comment about minimizing the massing. And the same goes for the other side, the left side. That retaining wall appears to be higher than it needs to be, where the railing kind of dies into that. And I think that it's going to be tricky then handling the stormwater when it gets to the base of that, but there's definitely ways of both enhancing the landscaping and reducing retaining walls on both sides and the rear. You might even get a window on the side view that you don't have right now if you reduce some of those retaining wall heights. Speaking and regarding windows on the middle level to the right of to the right there above the front door, since you really only have one elevation with windows, it seems like a shame that you don't have more windows on the house, since you really only have one elevation to add windows to. So you might look at that. I don't have an issue so much as what was mentioned about the glass railings, because it's going to not get a lot of sunlight in this canyon, and I think the layering of the glass railing actually kind of helps the elevation, in my opinion. Just my personal opinion on that one. I think the building, with regards to the making the findings, I think that this development could enhance the neighborhood, especially considering what's there now. And I think it's just a matter of massaging what you have to work with and being sensitive to the massing, the retaining walls. I would also encourage you to involve your civil engineer sooner rather than later to address stormwater, because that might affect your development. And before you get too far into this, make sure you know what you're dealing with, because creeks is an interesting animal to tackle as an approval process. And I think that was it for me. Thanks.
Okay, I think Ms. Anderson, you're next.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stay in the same order that my board members went in here. I'm feeling that generally right now it's the massing and the bulk are a little too dramatic for the neighborhood. So I think that what would help me for sure is to have maybe a street silhouette, or to know that adjacent neighbor house, what height that is. And I really confer the same comments around, we talked about the color, but blending into the hillside. You've got the siding already, but green walls, basically all those concrete walls could be green. And, the whole thing, if you came back with a different landscape color palette, maybe that's it. Can you reduce the plate height in the garage to 8 feet? Can you eke out a little bit of square footage? I'm struggling with the setbacks. I get it. So that to me just is, I know it's step back in and I think it's a great project and yeah, I understand the difficulty and I'm pro for it, but that's what I'm struggling with. Let's see what else. I think that's really it besides, discussions with the neighbors and what potentially comes out of those discussions in regards to, your windows and looking down and out upon their yards up at this elevation. And definitely confer about bringing back that top retaining wall and anything you can do on top of the building there, and fully landscaped. I mean, grown vegetation. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Graffiti?
Okay, I know a lot of my my colleagues have mentioned a lot of comments that I would agree with. I mean, I agree as much as possible minimizing the appearance or size of the retaining walls without, compromising integrity of their purpose and offsetting as much as possible with landscaping. I guess split on the railing comment, so I don't want to confuse any further, but it might be good to all align on that before we direct comments. But I would be open to either option discussed. I know we kind of covered this in questions, but just want to make sure I state it as a comment, minimizing the appearance of the back retaining wall specifically as much as possible. Let me see anything else here. And then also would be in support of getting a report on the heights of the neighboring residences, the ridgeline height. That's it.
I would agree with most of the comments that are made. And I do agree with your comment, this isn't south-facing, so there's probably going to be less glare opportunity here. It is kind of on the backside of the mesa. You might have a lot of fun keeping those glass railings clean, because it does tend to be pretty damp there, but it's an interesting project because where it's placed, it's next to a home that is very similar in sort of size, bulk, and scale. I don't know that that home was ever reviewed by our board. I'm assuming that that home was probably built, just by the looks of it, probably in the 70s, maybe the 60s. A lot of the other homes look like they might have built maybe in the 40s, 50s, remodeled over time. So it's interesting because when we're talking about neighborhood context, we're not talking about, the relationship with one house in the neighborhood. We're talking about a neighborhood. So my concern is, how do we make an argument that this fits into the neighborhood at large, or ask ourselves whether it does. So this is a conceptual design review, and I do feel like we need more supplemental materials. I feel I would want to see a study of homes on Mitchell-Terena Street because it's a dead end. I think that's your neighborhood, that compares gross square footages, not net. And I understand that there is a benefit to the partially retained residents in terms of a net calc, but realistically, all of the square footage still affects the bulk or the mass of the project. So in order to make a a compatibility finding, it makes sense to me to compare gross square footages. So I personally would like to see more supplemental information in that regard before I could move forward with the conceptual approval. I think muted colors are really important to try to get this to speak to the hillside that's being removed in order to find a place for it. I think that would be a nice homage to the soil and the earth that's being removed, and it would help it recede visually for the neighbors. Definitely want to see an arborist report on what has been removed and what is being proposed as a replacement. I know there were some trees shown on your site plan as being removed, but I don't know if those are the ones that have been removed or that you're proposing to remove in addition to ones that have been removed. I think it's very important for us to be clear on what has happened versus what's being proposed to happen. So it's interesting to me that the roof deck railing, if we could look at maybe the sections or the side view, that is opaque or solid compared to the other railings that are at the lower level. It's almost counterintuitive to me that in the sense that, like, if you're trying to reduce the mass that you feel on that, I'll call it third floor roof level, it seems like you would want to lighten that almost even more so than what you've done below on the other levels. So well, it's not a question time, but so I just asked myself, was there a reason for that, or is there an opportunity there to, again, have that be a lighter element to help, start reducing the feel of that roof deck area?
Yeah, we can definitely attack that last. Yeah, here we're showing as siding up on that top piece, and that definitely can be substituted out with something else.
Okay, thank you.
We just put that in as extra safety at the time.
Okay. I think those are my only comments. So we are here for really just comments, right? And I'm prepared to try to summarize those for the board unless someone else wants to take a stab at that.
I can.
Okay,
Can I add one more, though, before?
Yes.
I think it's a simple, but I think the rendering on page 34, I think is a good one to develop to help us understand what the street view truly is, because that's your approach, and then you can kind of see up on the side and what's happening with that back wall. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So let me ask a question of the board before we move on to the motion or the comments. Is there anything else in terms of supplemental information that anybody from the board feels like we need in subsequent reviews? Because we've gotten kind of down into the weeds in some ways, and I just want to make sure that we have what we need in terms of big picture issues. Like, I do agree with Ms. Lewis' comment that it would be great to see this developed more. Part of me wants to see that same view, but from further down the street, like right as I'm kind of coming around the corner where I can see the blue-gray house, and then I can see this one. It would be helpful to have those in context with one another, because I think that's really how this is going to read as you drive up the street. Is there anything that anybody else
I have a
would ask
comment about
for?
that.
Yeah.
I wrote down to ask you, I'm just wondering why we need an arborist report when the trees have to be removed for the development. And if they're already gone, the arborist report's not going to really talk about.
I don't know if there's any being retained, and when I say retained, not retained by, the earth isn't being retained, but being kept on either side. Because it looked like there's a pretty decent no man's land off to one side that was being presented as not really being touched. I guess that's why I had
Okay.
suggested that.
Yeah, just.
Realistically, I don't know if that's the case, but in plan view, that's what I read.
I mean, if the trees that are being removed have to be removed for the development, once you lower the retaining walls, that is, then, and you're gonna be replacing them, then that's why I'm just questioning why we would need an arborist report, so.
Yeah, then it would be moot.
And then the other, the square footage comparison, my opinion is that this house is nothing like anything in the neighborhood, and to do a square footage comparison when so much of the house is hidden is, what's it gonna really tell us, is my question that I'm asking myself. Because this property is so unique and so independent, and that kind of goes along with my opinion of whether or not it blends into the neighborhood. I mean, I drove this neighborhood, and this particular side of the street on this particular block is so different from everything in the neighborhood that a neighborhood comparison, a square footage comparison, really, I'm questioning whether it's going to give us any information at all. That's my opinion.
What do you think about comparing at least the heights and the setback to the neighbor that's most similar?
Yeah, and then I know how staff is looking at this garage, because I've seen these projects be approved before, and I know that when you have an instance where you have to back out onto the street, staff actually prefers you to be closer to the street, so you can't park a car behind the garage. So the reason that I think that staff is going to probably, if I could speak for them, that the reason they're probably going to be able to support this project is because they want the garage close to the street. Doesn't mean there's not an option for a lot of additional landscaping to soften it, but staff is going to want that garage close to the street. So.
Well, can I jump in on the square footages? I mean, that is like a 10-minute thing for the 10 closest homes to me, which says that I got, 8 1,200 square foot single-story homes right all next to this. I mean, I heard what you said, and these are unique, these two. But for me to try to, because I'm struggling with the massing, with the building and the setbacks, if I had a quick calc on, the 10 closest homes are 1,200 square feet, single story, and they're all 14 foot, and they're all right here, that would help me have that justification, and definitely the adjacent 1236 residents, because it's most similar, and right next to it is going to be super critical.
Chair Kloss, if I may suggest, we could take straw votes for these items in order to craft comments and move the item ahead.
I think that's fine to do in the case of the square footage. I think we've gotten past the arborist report question. I mean, I'm just looking at the actual, so this is a 2,681 square foot home before the credit or reduction. And so I'm just thinking about what I've seen in the neighborhood, and, I don't know that it would be a complete outlier, honestly, compared to some of the other homes that flank it, or, I don't know. I would have a hard time making a size, bulk, and scale determination on this project without additional information, personally. So, if you want to take a straw vote, we can take a straw vote, that's fine.
Chair Kloss, board members, this project is here for conceptual review, and eventually we'll go on to the staff hearing officer. So today we're really just looking for size, bulk, scale, neighborhood appropriateness, the summary of the comments made here today. The project can return, indefinitely to the full board prior to going to the staff hearing officer. If the maker of the motion that is summarizing the comments wants to suggest a straw vote, we can do that.
I can add that. I don't have a problem adding that, if it's important for at least 2 of the board members. We don't need to do a straw vote, so.
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming this is going to come back to us.
It's going to come back.
Anyhow, yeah. Do you want to go ahead and summarize comments? Yeah, I thought
The board, my motion would be indefinite continuance with the following comments, that the board understands the difficult nature and challenging topography of the site. And second comment would be study ways to reduce the retaining walls on both sides and the rear of the property to the furthest extent possible to minimize the mass, bulk, and scale. Provide an enhanced landscaping plan that further softens the massing in the hillside and blends the landscape, the architecture into the hillside more. Look for an opportunity to add fenestration to the right of the middle level above the entryway. The board encourages the applicant to involve the civil engineer to address the stormwater requirements at an early stage in the process. And the board requests a square footage comparison of the most, let's see, it's not the 20 closest homes. It's really what you're saying is, what you guys are saying is the closest homes that are on this, in this specific street side.
I would say the 10 homes from the termination of Mitchell Terrena down the hill,
Okay, is that clear?
inclusive of this property.
I think that's it.
Okay. Can I add to those comments? It's not really a motion, right? That's a, okay, so I think there's a couple. There was a recommendation by one of the board members that the applicant consider planters at the balconies. I think I heard that from Ms. Lewis, to break down the massing at the front. We'd like to request a section cut through the retaining walls. That the applicant consider a different type of guardrail at the roof deck level. That the applicant consider ways to address soil retention around the stairwell in order to reduce massing at that level. We would encourage the applicant to use more muted colors in order to blend with the natural landscape. And that we would encourage the applicant to open up a dialogue with the neighbors about their concerns related to staging, logistics, and construction phase operations. Okay. So those are our comments. We don't really.
Add to the color, the
Yes.
color, just with a specific on that item number, whatever it was, 6 or something, that 35C and 16.1 through 16.5 in the guidelines will give you lots of good feedback on colors and natural tone into the hillside.
Thank you.
Okay.
We still vote, right? It's comment
Yeah, so it's comments, so that was a first, that was a second, so was the comment, was a first, it was a requested amendment, and an additional request amendment of the maker of the motion. Are those accepted?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll second that, and then if we can take a roll call, please.
Okay, Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis.
Yes.
And Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
See you next month.
Thank you very much.
Nice project.
Okay. So I'd like to thank the next applicants for item 2 for being patient. This is also a concept review for 647 Sea Ranch Drive. The existing site is developed with a single-unit residence with an attached garage in the Hillside Design District and non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. It's a proposal to construct a detached 2-story accessory structure comprised of a 371-square-foot garage, a 341-square-foot workshop, and a 621-square-foot accessory dwelling unit above it. The project includes demolition of 2 storage sheds and construction of a new 298-square-foot detached garage. The proposed total of 5,522 square feet on a 2.58-acre parcel is 94% of the maximum guideline floor-to-lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer review and approval is required for a coastal development permit and accessory building modification. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings in Hillside Design District and slope lot findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. If you would like to, oh, it looks like we have a staff planner who might have something to say to us.
Thank you, Chair Kalas. Yeah, I'll keep my comments pretty brief before Liz gives her presentation on the project. So we're here in front of you today to receive comments on this project. As noted in the project description, this particular project requires a coastal development permit because it encompasses an accessory dwelling unit, and it also requires an accessory building modification specifically for the garage floor area. They already have a 2-car garage attached to the main residence, and as part of the project, although it's not required, they're providing a 1-car garage underneath the accessory dwelling unit, as well as another detached garage elsewhere on the property. This is quite a large lot. It's 2.56 acres. So, they are allowed to request this square footage, again, with a modification. So we're looking just in general aesthetic appropriateness of the modification, how it fits into the site in terms of size, bulk, and scale. If there's any issues with screening, and then, positive comments to be continued to the staff hearing officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your project, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Liz Hughes, representing Tom Oxner Architect. This is a new ADU on top of a new garage, as well as a detached garage building. I'm gonna skip forward to the site plan here. There's an existing 2-story residence and the site development around there. So I'm gonna go to this one. This parcel is actually accessed through a long driveway from Sea Ranch Drive. This driveway also is shared by 2 neighboring parcels to each side. So the existing development is set pretty far back into, off of the street there, and it doesn't really have much visibility to the neighborhood. The location that we're proposing, the ADU, is off of an existing motor court. So to kind of minimize disruption to the rest of the site, this also has a good, it's a good location because it's kind of tucked into the hillside and has a view as well, which I'll show in the photos. Here's an enlarged version of the plan. This is the location of the proposed detached garage, and this this location here is already paved, and there are two small accessory storage sheds that are, that were previously permitted here, which are being removed and replaced with this single structure. So, moving forward, actually, I'm gonna go back to the photos real quick. The proposed project, here's the aerial view of the existing residence, and the proposed ADU is being nestled into the hillside here. There is some landscaping that's being removed, particularly 2 citrus trees on this hillside. And then down here, you can see those existing accessory structures that are being removed and replaced with the new detached garage. This is a good view here, kind of from a similar spot that you might, where the ADU might be located. So you can see the view over the single story portion of the main residence. The idea is that, the character of this new ADU matches the existing building. And here's a view of the existing attached garage to the main house. I don't know why it's, oh, I guess you said it went on the last sheet as well. Oh, it's just not loading. Okay, here's a view of the motor court, and this area here is where the ADU is going to be located, along where that little retaining wall is there. So. This is the first floor of the proposed garage below the ADU, and on the other side, a little mechanical room and workshop. The reason why we're developing out this footprint area here is so that we could raise the ADU up, both to take advantage of the views, but also, just for sunlight, so that it's not kind of buried in that hill, just building it up so it can get a little bit more natural light. This is the floor plan of the ADU. We have a small deck coming off the front here, and this is overlooking that motor court. There's also a little retained area here with a patio off of the bedroom. Roof plan. This is the floor plan of the detached accessory structure. Pretty simple here. This one also is kind of built into an existing retained area. Elevations of the proposed structure, this ADU on the second floor and the garage and workshop on the first floor. You can kind of see how the hill extends up behind the structure here. So there really isn't, you can see here the solar access. Since we're so far down the hill here and so far away from the property line, we're not really affecting anyone else's views or casting a shadow on anyone's property. Just a view from the other side. This is where that retained area is off of the bedroom. And, oh, here are our photos in larger. Let's see, in larger, if you wanted to see some additional photos of the site. Huh. Yeah. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we'll open up public comment for anybody who may want to speak to this item, both online and in the room.
Okay, thank you, Chair Collas. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, but if you do wish to speak, you can fill out a speaker slip by the back door. Seeing no one move to speak, I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I will call on you. At this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Chair Collas.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Yes? Okay. Ms. Anderson?
I always have questions. Can you tell us, the existing garage, and it has a second story over it, the plate heights of that, and then go over the materials of the house in comparison to what you're proposing for the ADU,
Sure.
because it's right, kind of adjacent to it. Or,
Back to the photos. So here's a good picture of that existing garage. I believe the plate height here is 8 feet. I'm not sure what the existing plate height is since we didn't measure it, but it looks to be, not higher than 8 feet. And the materials of the existing residence is a stucco with white windows with trim. We're proposing aluminum clad windows for the new structure. And then the roof tiles are a concrete tile roof. So we're planning on matching all of those existing materials as well as the color of the stucco.
so you're going with white aluminum clad and black concrete roofing?
It's a dark gray, yeah.
Okay.
Or
Yeah, because it's similar, I mean, that's the only hip on the property, right? You're doing the same kind of blending in. Okay, gotcha. And then there's a couple of demo structures. I get the couple of sheds down for the garage. There's just, I guess that makes sense, garage for whatever was in the sheds. But there was something else on a site plan that was demo a structure that I don't, like, maybe we're not concerned about, but it was highlighting pictures or something.
do you know which sheet that was on? Or-
It was one with the red arrows.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that was
somebody
just an old
else
plan.
yeah, somebody else added that, so I'm not sure.
There, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Those are
so
short
this was a previously permitted structure. We are not pursuing this, and we're instead pursuing the ADU. So this was actually not permitted by the building department, but it was approved. It was a gym or a yoga studio, which is no longer.
So, Board Member Anderson, yeah, that was not actually supposed to be included in this set. They're not pursuing that, and they'll be required to withdraw that permit as part of this moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then back on the proposed plate heights of the ADU,
yeah.
in comparison to the existing house, sorry, I didn't.
So we have 9 feet for both the first and the second floor.
Okay, and then, do you have an idea of, and I know the site is, of the finished floor of the garage versus the top of the ridge of the site? I mean, I believe from, the quick review that we do, or long review, depending on the project, that you're not even gonna be able to see from the top of the site, the roof of the ridge, and, but finished floor heights to the top of the ridge versus what's at the garage always helps us kind of do that quick check.
To the existing garage, you're saying? Or the proposed?
Sorry, no, I'm back on what you've got proposed. I think
Okay.
that you're like,
I think, I'm going to try to help here. I think Ms. Anderson is trying to ascertain whether the ridge of the proposed ADU roof line exceeds the maximum natural grade on the property or not.
Okay.
In other words, if you are the parcel above,
Mhm.
is the ridge line going to be above the lowest point on that property?
Sure. It looks like here it's almost, you can see at this one point here, that it's just below where but this varies along the elevation of that back because it kind of actually is in a valley there. So this is maybe representing the highest point, but there are other points that are lower than this.
yeah, on your survey, but thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, so we will move to comments. Ms. Luce, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think the ADU works very well in the back of the site. It's not visible from the street or even the lower properties. I think it works really well being a comparable height and material to the main house. No other comments.
Sherry, any comments?
Yeah, I think it's a nice project, and I don't have any additional comments.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I agree. I support the FAR 94% because you're adding the the ADU. And the appearance matching all the existing house with all the same materials is awesome. And quality materials are all used, so yeah, I'm in support of the project.
Ms. Graffitti?
Yeah, I think it's a great project and would be in support.
I have one more question. Do you know what the pitch of the existing residence is, roof? It looked a little bit lower than a 4 to 12 to me. That's why I'm asking. I'm wondering if you're matching that or not.
I don't know. But I can look into that. I'm not sure if we have the existing drawings, but I'll see if I can pull that up. We may have gotten them from the archives.
Is the intent to match it, or is there something driving the 4 to 12?
There's nothing driving the 4 and 12.
Okay, so would there
It-
be any opposition to a comment that it would match?
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm in support of the project too. I think we can, so we're just here for concept review and positive comments to move this on to SHO, is that correct?
That's correct. I would like a specific comment about the detached garage as well, just so that's included for the staff hearing officer. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take a stab at it here for expediency's sake. So the board would like to continue this item indefinitely back to the consent calendar with the following comments. The board feels that that given the parcel size, the additional square footage for the detached single-car garage is supportable aesthetically. It will not have a huge impact on the property. It's effectively invisible from surrounding properties and from the street, and in essence is just replacing the built form that currently exists there in terms of the two sheds. So it does not increase density. Detailing and colors would be matching the main residence. And we're also in support of the ADU and the garage below it. It's consistent with the nature of the main residence, provides enhanced livability for the owners and occupants of the residence, and our only additional comment would be that roof pitches on both proposed structures match the pitch that currently exists on the main residence, and that all colors and detailing match to the greatest extent possible, with the understanding that the proposed windows will be aluminum clad.
Can I add on to that? I would just like the applicant, or how do I add on to, when you come to consent, that you review your notes on the elevations for finishes, because there may be some errors in what you're saying in regards to materials, in regards to matching the existing house.
Okay. Yeah, so just. Yeah, that's just a friendly reminder. Okay, so the motion stands as stated. If we can have a second, please.
Second.
And a roll call?
Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Um, Okay, so the next item is item 3, 965 West Mountain Drive. This project is before us for project design approval. And the description is as follows. Proposal for additions to an existing 1,290 square foot, two-story, single-unit residence consisting of an 865 square foot first floor addition, an 825 square foot second story addition, and a 128 square foot screened porch. The existing garage and 2 sheds will remain on site, and no improvements are proposed. These structures are not under single-family design purview. The proposed total of 4,259 square feet on an approximately 10-acre lot is 45% of the maximum guideline floor-to-lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design district and slope lot findings are required. The project has not previously been reviewed by this board. So this project is in front of us today for a PDA without concept. So if the applicant can please introduce themselves and your project.
My name is Luvira Vibisono, representing Andreolitis Mixon Architects. I'm gonna start with the site plan. The lot is a 10-acre lot on West Mountain Drive. So as you can see, like on the west and the south and the east side is all surrounded by West Mountain Drive. The existing lot right now have 1,200 square foot main residence. They have a 2-car garage. I can zoom in a little bit. So this is the existing primary residence, and then this is the 2-car garage, and then there are 2 accessory structure. And we are proposing a 2-story addition to the primary residence. And then I'm gonna go back to the photos to get you familiar with the site. So this is, let me see, go in a little bit. So this is the view, photo number 1 on the right. That's the view from West Mountain Drive looking into the gate. And then number 2 is as you enter the driveway, and then you can see the property looking southwest. So this is all, again, surrounded by West Mountain Drive. And then on picture number 5 at the bottom, here, I'm going to zoom in there. This is a picture looking north from West Mountain Drive, and you can sort of see the house up there. And then this is, as you are further south on West Mountain Drive, which is on a higher elevation, you can see the house from a distance. I put like a red dot over there because otherwise it's really hard to see. And then on the next page, you can see the actual existing main residence. So it's 1 story at the entry, and then on the 2-story, there's a bedroom upstairs and then a kitchen, living room on the first floor. The proposed addition is going to be next to that blank wall. It's the site's pretty. The site where the residence is pretty flat. Let's see, and then. The material that we're proposing, everything's gonna match the existing residence. The roof tiles, the metal downspout and gutter, all the exterior plaster, the color of the window and doors, which is gonna be like dark brown. Everything is gonna match the existing. The program, so I have, I'm gonna go here on the first floor plan. So this is, we're not touching the existing at all. So the program for the addition is a family room with a guest room on the first floor. We're gonna have a screen porch off that guest room. And then up on the second floor, it's gonna be a master suite with his and hers bath. On the next page, we can see on the elevation, on the front or south, I guess, elevation, we're keeping the existing, and then we're gonna have that 2-story. They're gonna be like a balcony off that master suite. The owner would like to have an outdoor access to that balcony, so we're gonna have that metal spiral stair. This elevation from the east is showing how the new addition behind related to the existing residence. And then this is the view from the back, or from the north side. That this 2-story addition, this is going to be the master suite above, and then that guest bedroom underneath. And this is the west elevation where we're going to have fireplace and like a little shed at the back. And then this is the French door to access the yard. That's all I have for now. Requesting for project design approval with this. And that will end my presentation.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll open this item to public comments.
Thank you, Chair Claus. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do have one request to speak, so I'll go ahead and start with Aaron Arndt. If you could make your way up to the podium. You can introduce yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
My name is Aaron Arndt. Gotcha, thanks. My name is Aaron Arndt. I'm counsel for Allison Armour, who lives to the north of this property. And Ms. Armour acknowledges that especially with the size of the property, the ability to develop, but because of the neighborhood in the area, height of development is incredibly important because Ms. Armour looks over this property for her views of the hillside and the ocean below. And what Ms. Armour thinks would be appropriate is either story poles or something that would allow us to have a concept of how it would impact her views. And if it doesn't, that's something we can deal with. But right now, and especially if you look at slide 12, which shows the view from the north, you can see that this potentially could impose a rather significant hindrance to the view. But without some sort of story poles and either images of the story poles or a site visit, it's just difficult for her as a neighbor to assess the impact that it would have. And that's it.
Thank you.
All right. That is all the speaker slips that I have right now. And I don't see anyone else moving to speak, so I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. At this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Kalas.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll open up to questions from the board. Does anybody have any questions?
Was there any consideration for building over where the current entry is and filling the sort of gap between the 2 second-story portions?
I think the consideration from the owner is that we're not touching the existing. And even if you see our floor plan, we actually do a double wall, so we're truly not structurally. Let me just go back to the floor plan real quick. The way this is designed is that we have a double wall. So we're truly not touching the existing structure at all, structurally or anything.
Okay, so no impact to their existing living conditions during construction?
Yes, exactly. And yeah. And just to address the height, I actually, on the exterior elevation, I have the exterior building height and the proposed building height. It's a total of 25 feet. Let me pass on that. The proposed building height is 25 feet. And then the existing is 21 and 5. So.
Okay. Ms. Lewis, did you have any other questions?
Sorry, the last question. For the exposed wood on the underside of the second-story addition at the porch, do you have any drawings that show the detailing? Will those have similar corbel shapes to the existing structure?
So if you want to see the shed, you're talking about the screen porch?
No, if you go up to the south elevation, the
Okay.
way that those wood kind of framing, any of those, I see how on the underside they'll be articulated, but is there any articulation in the wood, either the posts or the beam that
Oh,
you
I
have
don't
there?
have details yet. This
Canvas?
is like very conceptual right now, but we will detail that too when we get to final for sure.
But your request today is for project design approval. Was that on accident or intentional?
I think it is intentional.
Chair Kalas, board member, that is intentional. The project's been deemed complete, so they're complete from a zoning perspective, Creek's perspective. So, and as the applicant stated, final details will be supplied with final approval.
So, in my experience at project design approval level, we're expecting at least a modicum of architectural design details. I understand that we wouldn't have structural details or maybe waterproofing details, things of that nature, but we would be looking for, for example, how a large post and beam might terminate architecturally. Is it chamfered? Does it have a corbel? Does it have an OG detail? Those are things that typically we're looking at because that relates to how, especially in terms of an addition, it's going to relate to the existing architecture.
Chair Kalas, so if the board feels that they need those additional details to make that specific, project design approval finding for quality architectural materials as such, then that can be either a condition of approval or they can return for project design approval, bringing back those details.
So point of order, we would be able to give conceptual design today and continue this for PDA if we didn't feel that it was ready for PDA. Is that true?
You can grant project design approval and you can provide conditions for the project to return, or you can continue indefinitely for project design approval.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one question, Chair Kalas. What was the reason for raising the second floor, finished floor, different from the existing house?
The owner requested that the new first floor have a 10 feet ceiling height because they're going to use that as a big family room and a gathering room. And with big French door, those are the 8-foot French door, the view looking towards the south is where the view that they want. To the high ceiling is what they requested, and that's why the plate, I guess, is higher on the other side for that reason, to maximize the view.
That's fine, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Did you talk to the neighbors or in specific the northern neighbor?
I have not, but the owner, they're actually here, and I don't know if they might be able to address that.
What's that?
Have you talked to your neighbor on the northern side regarding your addition?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
If you could come forward, just sit here and introduce yourself, please, in case we have any other questions for you.
I'd like to say what we're putting on is just a couple feet higher than the existing.
Mhm.
And it's over to the western side of the property, which is a bunch of trees, and I don't think it would be affecting her view whatsoever. The
Okay.
trees are already there. They're gonna be on the back side of the building. She'll probably never see it.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. Could we see?
course.
Yeah, I was going to ask to see
Yeah.
these photos again. So if you could zoom in on the one, possibly number 4. It's to the right on the page, I think. Okay, so this is where the addition is proposed, right? Where the blank wall is?
Correct.
Okay. And then to the left in this photo, it looks like there's a eucalyptus or a podocarpus or a pepper or something that's weeping.
Those are pepper tree, yes.
Okay. And then are there any additional trees that you can point to, either on an aerial photograph or another photograph that you have?
I only have the survey, and I don't have a landscape plan, because the idea is we're building on the flat.
Should have a few
Yeah,
trees on
yeah,
it already.
yeah. I just have the survey, but
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Where is this,
This
where's
is
the
the-
neighbor?
I was going to ask staff to,
Well-
sorry.
All the basic trees.
So this is, yeah, so on everything else is surrounded by West Mountain Drive except for this northern side, I guess. But these are the pepper tree that you guys saw on that pictures, and there's like an existing oak tree here. And we're keeping all of these trees. We're not removing any of that. And if you see on that picture before, there's actually like a side wall back here, and we want to keep all that. And the addition is going to be on that flat part of the site. And we're keeping every trees there on the site.
Okay. Would it be possible, I know in the past, staff has been able to pull up like a Google Earth image. Could we do that? It might help to illuminate.
So for the record, we will take a screenshot of this and upload it to the city's internal record-keeping system.
Okay. So I'm assuming that Ms. Armour's home is the one that's to the north with what appears to be a round yin yang pool. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And is that a hedge that runs between the properties
Yes, a
there?
bougainvillea fence.
And how tall is that hedge approximately?
Right now, it's about 8 foot tall.
Okay.
It goes like this, up in the back. It's not really just one level.
Yeah, it sort of
Yeah,
undulates.
It's high in the middle, and then it goes off towards the roadway.
Okay. There's two trees to the left along the property line, right there.
Those are oak trees.
Okay.
Those been there forever.
Okay. And then so if we were to take a center line right off of Ms. Armour's main residence there's two, if you keep coming, staff's doing a really good job. To the right, please, and up a tick. Is
Yeah,
that one of the pepper trees?
Pretty much all that is down in a ravine.
Okay.
It's lower than her property is.
Okay, and what kind of
The only
trees
thing,
are there?
The two oak trees that you pointed off that I said was there forever, that's about the same height as her property is right now.
Okay, and then that tree that the cursor's on right now, is that one of the pepper trees?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then the cluster of trees directly below that on the page?
Those,
Is it? Those are the
well, there's
in
some
front
palm
of it.
trees there a little bit to the left of your arrow.
Yeah, we can see that. That's further, it looks like a fan palm.
There's a big rock over there, right there by where your arrow is. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
big rock right there. There's a Canary Island right next to the left of that.
Mm-hmm, that's the large one.
I'd just like to make a comment about the corbels. Everything will be exactly like what's existing there now. I have rafters, 4x6 rafters with a little corbel on the end, and everything will just match. I know that it's not on her plans and stuff, but basically I can answer that question right now. It'll just all match and be the same as what's existing there right now.
Okay. Okay, those were the questions I had. It's our turn. Those were the only questions that I had. They were more site planning related.
I have just one quick
view-related
question.
questions, yeah.
It looks as though, even though you don't have, your finished floors, if I'm looking at this topo correctly, it looks like the existing house is somewhere around 868, and that if the site slopes up to the neighbor, and if that topo, the closed topo north of the water tanks, is that if that says 890, which I think it does, it would mean that there is
Right behind the water tanks, the property goes pretty much
yeah, let me
the same
So-
height.
So my question is it appears that the finished floor of the existing house is about 868. If I follow these topos down below, up through the existing house, and then if the site keeps going up toward the north property line, and that is in fact 890 that I'm seeing, there's a topo line cut through where the 9 would close. But I think if it's 890, then we're looking at a 30.
It's 22 grade,
22,
Yeah.
almost 22 feet, like, difference.
So the neighbor's house is 32 feet above. I just want to point this out, that the neighbor's house is 22 feet.
Higher
Higher.
than our law, which they're the one that looking down into our law.
Right.
Yeah, but they're a lot higher, correct?
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to point that out to the board and confirm that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Comments, Ms. Lewis?
I think overall, from a size, bulk, and scale, you don't really see the visibility at all from the street, and I think it does a general way of staying with the general massing. I personally feel like I can go to consent and just review the details, especially the spiral stair, the ironwork, and the exposed wood, and also the side chimney, seeing those developed.
Ms. Sherry, any other comments?
Just that I think that I would be comfortable giving the project design approval today with the condition that final details come back to consent for final approval.
Ms. Anderson?
I'm struggling with that, but I'm going to go along with my other board members. Consent person needs to take a look at those details. I mean, the rest of us have to submit the details with PDA. That's why I'm struggling with it.
Okay. Is there anything on your notes or the plans that say all details will match existing?
I believe so. I think it's on the elevation. Let me double check.
I think there's a whole page
Yeah, on the
devoted to
exterior
a
elevation
finish.
notes, many
On
of
the
them,
elevation notes, I believe.
not all of them are called out specifically, but a number of them.
I actually know, like, exterior stucco with beams, columns stained, wrought iron painted, terracotta roof tiles to match existing, window aluminum exterior to match existing, French door to match existing, metal spiral stair painted to match wrought iron.
Okay.
So I try to detail it as much as I have, yeah.
Okay. Ms. Graffitti?
Yeah, I would support the project for PDA to consent, again, making sure the materials are provided. And I mean, I don't know if we can state into the record that they would be matching the existing residence, but that would definitely be something that I'd want to see.
Okay. I'm in agreement with the rest of the board members, and I will address the public comment briefly. Individual private views are not the purview of this board. Our board can look at privacy issues. We can look at proximity of development clearly on the lot, and given where the existing residence is that we're reviewing, it's significantly distant from the property line between your client and the applicants. It appears as though there is a reasonable amount of screening and that there is a grade difference. If we assume a 22-foot grade difference, even though the proposed addition is at 25 feet, if someone at typical eye height was standing in your client's residence, their eyesight would be above that 25-foot mark. I'm pretty short. Mine's probably at about 4'10", but most people, we figure it's 5'6" or 6 feet. So that would put somebody over the top of the ridge. And with the distance, there's even some greater benefit that's garnered from that. So while we don't consider it our purview, I don't think that the view issue is going to be significant for the client, for your client. So I'm also comfortable approving this for PDA to return to consent calendar with the details that we've requested. Would anybody like to make a motion, or? I'll make a motion that this project be approved for project design approval with the following comments. We believe that the project is compatible with the neighborhood in terms of size, bulk, and scale. It's a relatively modest home for such a large property. We would request that it return to consent calendar for final approval, and that all ironwork, finishes, the chimney cap, and any wood detailing on the exterior be detailed, and that those be included in terms of colors and finishes and shapes and relationship to other materials that they interface with on the final details. That all existing vegetation to the northwest of the proposed addition be documented on the site plan. And we will make the neighborhood preservation findings that, go back one page, please. That the proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. All of the details are consistent with the existing residents, and there's no deleterious effect on the neighborhood given the parcel size. I think I've already spoke to the size, bulk, and scale. Quality architecturals are being used, specifically mission tile roofing to match existing, plaster, large size timbers. There are no trees being removed as part of the project, and that the public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. That we don't anticipate any privacy concerns given the distance of this proposed project to property lines, and there are no public views affected by this project. The development maintains the natural topography and protects it because it's essentially in a flat area on the property, and the building scale is in scale and harmonious with the existing grade. That's my motion.
I second.
If we could have a roll call, please.
Chair Kalas?
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeidi?
Yes.
Board Member Lewis?
Yes.
And Board Member Sherry?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Chair Colossus, if you could please announce the appeal period.
There is a 10-day appeal period for projects that receive project design approval. The minutes will be ratified at our next full board hearing. But the 10-day appeal period starts from that point, all right? Or does it start from today? Okay, so 10 days from tomorrow. Thank you. We will adjourn the single-family design board hearing for today, May 22nd, 2023. Have a good evening. you.